In this short video, I'm going to look at Kalilytics and some of the tools that are available on this platform to be used to do some network reconnaissance. Remember that reconnaissance is the first step in the cyber attack kill chain. And I talk a lot about the cyber attack kill chain in one of my other videos, but here's a quick reminder. Recon or reconnaissance is the very first step in the cyber attack kill chain. That's where attackers will do something like what we're about to do and see what kind of hosts are available, what information they can find out about a network, a person, a system, and they could use a variety of open source intelligence or OSINT tools and other tools to try and do this reconnaissance. Then they weaponize their attack, they deliver the attack, they exploit the person or the system. They then install their malware. It could be something that's just running in RAM, or it could be something they try and get on the system with persistence. Then they have command and control, or C2 or CNC, where they can interact with the compromised host to be able to run commands and do whatever they're hoping to do. And then, of course, they finally have their action to the objective, whether it's installing ransomware, spreading laterally across a network, or doing something else. So we're going to talk about just that first step, reconnaissance, and some of the ways you can use these tools as both an adversary and a blue team or cyber defense person. So they're not only helpful, these tools, for attackers, but it's nice to know what systems are even on a network that you may be responsible for protecting. So an adversary may use a tool like we're going to look at to see, well, what's even available to me that I could try and go after. But a blue team person, a defender, is going to look at what information, what systems are available on this network that I need to be aware of so I can sufficiently protect them. Remember the saying that you can't protect what you don't know about. So tools like NMAP and others help us determine, well, what's out there, what do I need to know about. And Kali has a couple of tools that we can use to do this kind of activity. The first tool that I'm going to show you is called masscan, and it is available. You can either launch a command prompt and type in masscan, or use the graphical user interface, or GUI, to do that. So let's look at Kali. I'm going to open up the applications, and I'm going to go to information gathering, which is what we're talking about in this course, and go to network and port scanners. And now you will see masscan available to me. So I'm going to click that, and it gives me some information about the commands and different options that you can use. This is a very simple, quick tool to be able to do. Before I go any further, though, it's important to know what our IP address range is that we're interested in scanning. So for this exercise, I'm just going to show you how to find your local IP address. I'm using a system on my lab environment, so I know my IP address range and I could just plug it in, but I'll show you quickly how to identify it if you don't know yours. I'm just going to simply open a command line here, and I'm going to use the command IP address, so IP space ADDR, and hit enter. And this gives me the IP address information for the system that I'm on. Loopback, for this purpose, we don't care about, but this interface 2, Ethernet 0, is the one that I care about. And this shows me that I have an IP address of 172.16.1.109. That /24 I'll talk about in a minute. That's a CIDR notation. And this is an address that you would expect to see on an internal system. This is what's called an RFC, request for comment, 1918, non-publicly routable internal IP address. So I now know that that's my system, my Kali system's IP address, but I want to scan my range. So I'm going to remember this 172.16.1 number, and you'll need to know yours as we go through here. The first scan that I'm going to do with masscan is I want to see every host on my network that's using port 80. Now, port 80 is associated with HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, so unencrypted web traffic. And I want to see what systems are serving up port 80. And sometimes this is a great scan to do in environments because there could be IoT devices, printers, computers, servers that are serving up port 80 and people don't even know it. So this is exactly what adversaries do to see what's out there, and I'm going to show you what you could do on your home network. So I'm just going to type in the command sudo, which in Linux just means run this command as essentially root or the administrator. So I'm type that, which it's going to prompt me for my password here in a minute, and I'm going to say masscan and 172.16.1.0/24. What this means is I want to scan all of the IP addresses in that /24, that CIDR notation, which means all IP addresses from 172.16.1.1 through 172.16.1.254. So that whole block of addresses I'm going to be scanning, and I want to scan it with port 80 to see what systems on my network have something on port 80. So I just hit enter. It's again asking for my password like I mentioned, so let me put that in. And now it's going through just very quickly and showing me that it discovered an open port of port 80 on these various IP addresses. So that's quite a few systems, and we could then start looking at those systems to see what information is out there. Now, one thing you can do in Linux is hit the up arrow, which automatically populates the last command you just entered, and I can keep hitting the up arrow and see historically other commands. So this is really handy if you want to just quickly modify something or go back to a command once you have one that works, to just do it instead of having to type the whole thing over and over again. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pipe these results out to my desktop because I want to save this for a report or just for future reference. So I'm going to go to home, and my username is student and my desktop, and I'm going to say masscan.txt. This is going to rerun the command, and it's going to then take all that information, put it into a text file. Now I could have simply just copied and pasted the results above and done this as well, so I didn't have to redo the command, but I just wanted to show you how this is done. So it's not as verbose, it doesn't give me the results in the terminal, but it does put it in a text document, so I can just double click this, and you see now that I have all the same information, but now it's within a nice text file that I could then export, and it gives me all of this information. So let's just pick one here. I'm going to pick this host here. It says that 172.16.1.4 in my lab environment is serving up port 80. So one way to check that quickly is I'm just going to open a browser. So I open Firefox, and I'm going to go to http 172.16.1.4, and I'm going to specify with :80 that I want to have this go out on port 80. If I don't do that, it could redirect to another port. It may still do that, but this is just a safe way to say I want to connect on port 80. So I hit enter. It did in fact redirect me to HTTPS and port 5001, but that does mean it's listening on 80, and the fact that we got this return tells us there is a live system that's hosting some sort of web server on it. So we're getting this potential security risk because it's most likely a self-signed certificate that's being used. So I'm going to say advanced and accept the risk and continue because I know this is my system. And when I do that, it actually shows me that we are connected to a Synology file server. And this is one that I have in my lab, and I know it exists, but maybe you didn't know that this was on your network, and now you just found something sitting out there. And now if an attacker found this, they could start scanning for vulnerabilities known to Synology. They could start trying to brute force the username and password. There's a number of different things that they could do. So masscan is a very easy tool just to quickly scan a range or a single IP or a couple of IP addresses for a specific port. Now you can also say scan for 80, for 443, for 22. You can do multiple ports in a single scan, but this is just a simple way that I wanted to show you for this tool. I'm going to start over here. The next tool that I want to show you is called Zenmap. Zenmap is a graphical user interface, a GUI tool, open source, that's available, that essentially provides you this nice overlay to a very well-known and popular tool called NMAP. NMAP is a great tool to be able to run a number of reconnaissance tests and checks against systems on a network, and I'll show you both the graphical user interface and how you could just do it on the command line. We'll first start by opening Zenmap by clicking the tools in Kali Linux. I'm going to again go to information gathering, network, and port scanners, and I'm going to click Zenmap. Now I'm also going to click the root one because I want to be able to run this as an administrator to have the most options, and this will prompt me for my password. So this is very much like typing sudo like I did previously, and this is just using it through the GUI. So I will put my password in here and authenticate, and now I have Zenmap available to me. You'll notice there's a command line here already populated. This is the NMAP command that we would have to manually type on a terminal to do this ourselves. It just populates it for us. So if you're not real comfortable with the command line or Linux in general, Zenmap might be a good option for you. But if you like the command line and you're used to using Linux, then you certainly could do this in the command line, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Now, to do a scan, just like with masscan, we have to know the IP address range or the address, the single address that we're interested in scanning. So I'm again going to use my lab environment, and I'm going to scan my entire network range to see what I can find. So here I'm going to say my target is 172.16.1.0/24. Again, that's that entire CIDR range representing 172.16.1.1 through 172.16.1.254. That's a class C network is what that would represent. So I'm just going to do a quick ping scan. A ping scan just sends an ICMP packet to a host and asks for a reply, and if it gets a reply, then it knows there's something sitting on the other end of this communication. At this point, it's not going to tell us really what that is, just that yes, there's a live system there that responded to our ping. Some corporate networks and more higher secure organizations will disable ICMP traffic between hosts just for this reason, so adversaries can't get in and start poking around. But your home network and even a lot of business networks still allow this kind of traffic, so we're just going to give it a shot and see what we come up with. So now that I've done this, I'm going to just simply hit scan, and it's going to launch this scan for me. And we can see all of the hosts that it's finding, and that's it. It scanned 256 IP addresses just that quick. That's in real time. I can scroll up here and see all the hosts that responded to the ping, and you can see the host is up, the MAC address, media access control, or the hardware address associated with the port, and then it tells me the host is up, how much latency, and you can see all down here. It also is able to pull, now this isn't always accurate, but pull information. So Synology, TP-Link, Ubiquity, bunch of information in here that could be helpful. We can also on the left-hand side here, click on specific hosts, and you see here's a whole list of all the hosts that responded. So quite a few hosts on this lab network. And you can even see some topology of how the various systems talk to each other and how they're all interconnected. So there's actually a lot you can do with Zenmap. I'm really just scratching the surface here, but I did want to show you some of these other options that are available to you. Now, just like with masscan, we might want to save this information out for some reason. Now, Zenmap will save it as an XML. So we'll just go to scan, we'll save the scan, and I'm going to put it on my desktop. So let me run here to home, student, desktop, and we're going to call this nmap1.xml. I'll hit enter, and you see it just showed up on my desktop. So now I can double click this, and it's not very pretty, but if we had a software application that would look at XML and put this in a nice structure, then we would be able to see all this in a much nicer format, but it is all there. Okay, so now that we have done that, I'm going to show you how you could do the same thing in the command line. So one nice thing is if you don't memorize all of the different switches and options for NMAP, you can always use Zenmap to create this for you. Copy this and then go to a terminal window and put the command in there. So I'm just going to do that and hit enter, and it's going to do the exact same thing we just did with Zenmap, but rather this will be within the command line. So here you see the same information just ran through that. Now, one other thing that you could do just like we did last time, I'm going to hit the up arrow. I'm going to pipe this out to my desktop. So home, One other thing, if you're not familiar with Linux, I can just hit the tab button and it will auto-populate the rest of the path for me. So if there's multiple hits for something you're typing, then it'll show you various options. Like I can hit tab here and it'll say, here's all the different directories within the student directory. And I can look and say, okay, I want it on my desktop, hit tab. And now I'm going to give it a name of nmap 2. This time I'm going to make it a text file.txt. Hit enter. It's rerunning that scan, outputting everything to a text file. And now if I go to the nmap.txt, here it is. And this is something, again, we can export out as part of a report or just for put into a different tool or a number of things. Nmap is included in a number of software tools, cybersecurity tools, vulnerability scanning engines, SIM tools, a lot of different things, because it's really useful to be able to just launch scans. So Nmap is definitely a tool if you're into cybersecurity that you should learn how to use. Now that we've done that, I'm going to show you a more in-depth scan with Zenmap, and you can really do a number of different scans here. And this time I'm going to pick just one host because this can take a really long time, and I'm going to do a more in-depth scan. And one thing about in-depth scans I just want to say is if you're scanning at work, be very careful with this because an aggressive scan can start triggering host-based and network-based intrusion detection systems. IPS systems may block traffic. If you have a SOC, they might start getting alerts that something's going on. And for more legacy and fragile systems, you can actually take them offline. So you definitely don't just want to wide open, aggressively scan a network that you're not familiar with because you can take things completely offline. I remember one time one of my people was doing some aggressive vulnerability scanning and hit a bunch of printers across our whole global enterprise, and it just started spewing pages and pages of printing just gibberish all over the place, and we got tons of complaints about that. So one nice thing too about having IP address schemes and ranges so you can exclude don't scan the printers for this kind of scan is a great idea. So for this, I'm just going to pick one single IP address and I'm going to do a more robust scan to see what information that we get. So I'm just going to pick 172.116.1.4 and I'm going to say I want an intense scan. And you can see here it auto-populated the scan, and what this means, the T4 means that there's a level of 1 through 5. 5 is the most aggressive timing, so the T is for timing, and it tells us how much aggressiveness it's the timing template going to be scanning. A tells it to enable the aggressive scanning. It also looks for the operating system, the version, things like SSL or TLS certificates. The -V or TAC-V is verbose, so give me the information here in the screen as you scan, gives us that real-time output, and then of course our IP address. So I'm going to scan just this one single IP, and you can see it's already doing scanning, it's giving us information. On this one port, it checked 1,000 ports, and it discovered an open port on 443, 80, 5001, 3261, etc., etc. So it's still scanning. It's looking for various services and things like that may be of interest to us. And when it's done, it will give us the report of everything it found. Now, you could do an intense scan on everything, but like I said, it can take a long time, and it can also cause problems. Okay, so we've got some scan results already back. And again, this was real time. I didn't speed anything up. Let me scroll up to the top. So it tells us all the different things that it checked. It now says the ports, was able to pull a favicon, a title. So this is getting some of the headers from the web server that it was able to talk to. And you can see here, there's a Synology incorporated. The public key it was able to grab and the hash values for that. The different ports that are open. So we see we've got AFP running, which would make sense for a NAS device. We see we've got an iSCSI port that also would make sense. And got some, some other things running here. Port 5000, robots.txt isn't allowed, and some more web traffic here. And more 7001 TCP open. So it also gives us MAC address information for Synology. It's running Linux, and it gives us the version. Now, this isn't always accurate, but it's usually pretty close. It gives us some OS details, how long it's been up, gives us some information on the distance, the trace route, how many hops it was away. Here's the actual trace route information, and how long it took. So lots of great information here, and we've got the system that we just scanned in the topology map. If you wanted to map your network, this is another tool you could use for that. Now, one last thing I just want to show you is doing more of a range with just a standard NMAP scan. So the target here, I'm going to put a range of 172.16.1.1 through .5, no spaces between this, it's just .1-5. That tells it to scan the IP addresses between 1 and 5, and I'm going to pick regular scan for that. That just gives us the NMAP command. We could again use this in the command line with NMAP, or we can do it right here within Zenmap, and I'm going to hit scan. And this gives us some more information. You see it's still pretty quick, but it tells us all the different ports that are open on the different systems that it scans. So .2 has these ports that it was able to hit, and .4, which we've already looked at. And there was 5 IP addresses scanned, which makes sense because 1 is counted through 5, and then 3 out of those IP addresses, so 3 out of the 5 had a live system behind it, and we can see the different ports that are open here. So with that, again, just a quick lesson on how you could use NMAP to do some reconnaissance on your home network or your work. And what is nice about this too is you could scan and then take that report, port it out like I showed to a text file or something, and then look at things like your vulnerability scanning engine, your asset management system, whatever other tools you have at your disposal to do some crosswalking and say, okay, these systems I expected to see on my network, but I have no idea what this is. We need to go investigate this to see what it is, why it's on our company network. This is also something you can do regularly. You can script this and even have it show you MAC addresses that have been seen on your network that you didn't know about before. And now, larger organizations will have automated tools and network access control and other things that will do this in an automated fashion. But sometimes you don't have the budget or the resources or the knowledge to be able to implement tools like that. And it's perfectly acceptable to use open source tools like NMAP as part of your cybersecurity toolbox. So don't ever hesitate to sometimes fill a need with something as simple as this to give you more insights into what's going on in your systems and your network. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I read all of them, and please subscribe to the channel for future updates on videos from Natsar. Thank you.